Welcome. This is a product overview of ComplianceForge's risk management program, which we call the RMP. Over the next few minutes, we will walk through what it is, what problems it solves, exactly what is included, and why risk management documentation matters. The RMP provides cybersecurity-focused risk management practices to implement a program-level governance function. Its holistic approach aligns with NIST, ISO, and Secure Controls Framework risk management practices. It leverages the Security, Compliance, and Resilience Risk Management Model, the SCRRMM, from the SCF, for scalability. And it delivers immense time and cost savings, enabling your subject matter experts to fill in the details that only they know. Nearly every framework and regulation expects you to manage cybersecurity risk in a documented, repeatable way. If an auditor or board member asked how your organization identifies, rates, treats, and tracks risk, could you show a defined process, or just a spreadsheet someone updates occasionally? Building a credible risk management program from a blank page takes specialized expertise most teams lack. The RMP gives you a running start. An editable, program-level risk management playbook, aligned to NIST, ISO, and the SCF's risk management model, covering how risk is identified, assessed, treated, and reported. It gets you roughly 80 to 90% of the way there, and then your team tailors the risk criteria and workflows to your organization. In essence, the RMP is a risk management playbook for how your organization addresses the broader concepts of risk management that are not provided by a policy or standard. It captures the details that explain how risk is actually managed, day to day, by the people who execute risk-based controls. All companies have a need to manage risk. Most companies are compelled to manage risk, and these requirements come from a broad range of sources. Regardless of your industry, there are likely requirements to manage cybersecurity risk, and failing to manage risk could leave your company liable for non-compliance. NIST 800-171, which covers protecting controlled unclassified information in non-federal systems, requires risks to be periodically assessed in Section 3.11. The Federal Trade Commission Act deems unfair or deceptive acts or practices in commerce to be unlawful. Poor security practices are covered under this requirement, and not managing cybersecurity risk is an indication of poor security practices. The Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard requires companies to perform a formal risk assessment in Section 12.2. And Massachusetts 201 CMR 17 requires companies to identify and assess reasonably foreseeable internal and external risks. The Oregon Identity Theft Protection Act requires companies to assess risks in information processing, transmission, and storage. The HIPAA security rule requires companies to conduct an accurate and thorough assessment of potential risks. The Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act's Safeguard Rule requires companies to identify and assess risks to customer information. And vendor contracts. It is increasingly common for vendors, partners, and subcontractors to be contractually bound to perform recurring risk assessments. Not having a cybersecurity risk management program could lead to breach of contract or losing a bid. So what exactly is the RMP? Risk, threat, and vulnerability management practices are meant to achieve a minimum level of protection. This equates to a reduction in the total risk due to the protections offered by implemented controls. These ecosystem components have unique meanings that need to be understood to reasonably protect people, processes, technology, and data. The latest version of the RMP is aligned with the Secure Controls Framework risk management model, which provides a very flexible approach to risk management. This ties in with the Cybersecurity Risk Assessment Template product, which is also aligned with the same model, so it complements the RMP by having a repeatable, professional template for performing controls-based risk assessments. Just as Human Resources publishes an employee handbook to let employees know what is expected from an HR perspective, the RMP does this from a cybersecurity risk management perspective. When you look at getting audit ready, your policies and standards only cover the why and what questions of an audit. The RMP addresses the how questions for how your company manages risk, with clear, concise documentation that provides a paint-by-numbers approach. It addresses the fundamental needs of cybersecurity risk management: how risk is defined, who can accept risk, how risk is calculated by defining the potential impact and likelihood, the necessary steps to reduce risk, and risk considerations for vulnerability management. The RMP is based on leading frameworks such as the NIST Risk Management Framework, NIST 839, ISO 31010, and COSO 2013. The RMP is a one-time purchase of editable Microsoft Office-based documentation templates. There is no software to install, no agent to deploy, no account to provision, and no cloud environment to configure. If your organization can open and edit Microsoft Word files, the RMP is ready to use. It is delivered as fully editable Word files, compatible with Word 2016 and newer, Microsoft 365, OpenOffice, LibreOffice, and Google Workspace. The paired risk assessment template is delivered as Microsoft Excel. Documentation is delivered via email download link within 1 to 2 business days of purchase, often the same business day. There is no installer, no license server, and no activation step. And it is a one-time purchase. A single entity license is included, with no recurring subscription requirement, although an optional update subscription is available. This deployment model is intentional. Risk management documentation benefits from being in your organization's own hands, inside your own document management systems, rather than locked inside a vendor's SaaS tool. Once delivered, this product belongs to you. The first problem the RMP solves is a lack of in-house security experience. Writing security documentation is a skill that many good cybersecurity professionals simply are not proficient at and avoid at all cost. Tasking your security analysts and engineers to write comprehensive documentation means actively taking them away from protecting and defending your network. The RMP is an efficient method to obtain comprehensive risk management documentation. The second is compliance requirements. Requirements such as PCI DSS, HIPAA Massachusetts 201 CMR 17, and NIST 800-171 establish a mandate to formally manage risk. The RMP addresses these compliance requirements. The third is audit failures. Most organizations run into trouble in audits when asked how risk is managed, since they cannot provide documentation beyond policies and standards. The RMP addresses the how for you. And the fourth is vendor due diligence requirements. It is very common for clients and partners to request evidence of a risk management program during their due diligence. The RMP provides this evidence. The first is clear documentation. The RMP provides the comprehensive documentation to prove that your risk program exists. The second is time savings. It provides actionable guidance on what steps can be taken to categorize, calculate, and manage risk in a sustainable manner. And the third is alignment with leading practices. The RMP is written to support COSO, COBIT, NIST, and ISO frameworks, which provide you with significant flexibility. It is designed to take your organization from a blank document to a defensible, customizable risk management program in weeks rather than months, with a controls-based assessment template included for the actual risk assessment work. So what do you actually receive? The RMP is delivered as editable Microsoft Office documentation. Purchase includes a single entity license, the first year of product updates, and the cybersecurity risk assessment template, which pairs with the RMP to provide a controls-based risk assessment format. The risk taxonomy covers what risk is, risk management activities and benefits, who has the authority to manage risk, and risk management decisions. It defines how risk is categorized, from low risk through medium, high, and severe, up to extreme risk. The risk management fundamentals cover risk management principles, maturity levels, defining the risk appetite, situation awareness, analyzing risks, evaluating and prioritizing risks, risk treatment, monitoring risk, and documenting risk and reporting findings. And the cybersecurity risk management methodology takes a 3-level approach. COSO at the strategic, enterprise level, ISO at the operational, program level, and NIST at the tactical, asset and project level. Appendices cover sources of risk, risk roles and responsibilities, and risk assessment techniques. One more thing. The cybersecurity risk assessment template is the operational counterpart to the RMP. The RMP defines how risk is managed at the program level. The CRA gives the repeatable format for performing the actual controls-based risk assessments. Both are aligned with the SCF risk management model, so they work together as one integrated risk management capability. Now compare that against the 2 alternatives for obtaining quality cybersecurity documentation. For your internal staff to generate comparable documentation, it would take them an estimated 200 internal staff work hours, which equates to a cost of approximately $17,500 in staff-related expenses. That is about 3 to 6 months of development time, where your staff would be diverted from other work. If you hire a consultant to generate this documentation, it would take them an estimated 140 consultant work hours, which equates to a cost of approximately $43,000. That is about 2 to 3 months of development time for a contractor to provide you with a deliverable. The RMP is approximately 11% of the cost for your internal staff and approximately 5% of the cost for an external consultant to generate equivalent documentation. The program itself is $2,175. Regardless if your cybersecurity program aligns with NIST, ISO, COBIT, ENISA, or another framework, the RMP is designed to address the strategic, operational, and tactical components of risk management. A PDF example on the product page shows representative content, so you can evaluate the quality and structure of the documentation before purchase. So how much work is left for you? Here is the customization process at a glance. ComplianceForge aims for approximately an 80% solution, because it is impossible to write a 100% cookie-cutter document that can be equally applied across every organization. Risk management depends on your specific risk appetite, risk tolerance, and governance structure, so the remaining work is fine-tuning the RMP with the specific information that only your organization knows. In practice, customization is filling in the blanks, adding your company name and logo, naming the risk approvers and risk owners, tailoring impact and likelihood scales, defining the risk register format, and removing sections that do not apply to your organization. If you want a hand, ComplianceForge offers optional professional services. They are not required to customize ComplianceForge documentation. The 5-hour bundle may be beneficial for companies that need some guidance on getting started with how to tailor their documentation. The 10-hour bundle is for companies that need additional guidance on tailoring their documentation to meet their compliance requirements. And the 20-hour bundle is for companies that need robust services beyond just 10 hours to assist in tailoring their documentation. Purchased professional service hours expire 120 days, or 4 months, from the time of purchase if unused. Hours are intended to supplement, not replace, your own customization work. There are more reasons to buy. Formal cybersecurity risk management documentation has become a baseline expectation across regulatory, contractual, and customer due diligence contexts. Vendor contracts increasingly require recurring risk assessments. Not having a cybersecurity risk management program can lead to breach of contract, lost bids, and elevated insurance premiums. The RMP provides a complete, defensible risk management baseline that can be customized to your risk appetite and governance structure in weeks rather than months. Even with larger organizations that have enterprise risk management departments, the RMP can tie into the broader risk management framework for any organization. What ComplianceForge did was simply reduce the complexity by creating a usable risk management framework that any company can implement. It covers how risk is categorized, risk management fundamentals, maturity levels, defining risk appetite and tolerance thresholds, evaluating and prioritizing risks, risk treatment, documenting and reporting findings, defining potential impact and likelihood, criticality levels for assets, systems, and data, and the sources of risk. The RMP addresses the due care component of getting your organization to a mature level for managing risk. First, determine the potential likelihood of threat occurrence. Organizations must take into account the probability of potential risks, since that identifies the legitimate threat landscape and determines which threats are reasonably anticipated based on your unique situation. Second, determine the potential impact of threat occurrence. Organizations must consider the criticality or impact of potential risks to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of their data and information systems. This can be qualitative, quantitative, or a combination of the two. And third, determine the level of risk. From likelihood and potential impact, organizations can assign risk levels for all threat and vulnerability combinations identified during the risk analysis. The RMP is based on NIST 837 Revision 2, COSO 2013, COBIT 5, and ISO 31010 best practices. This hybrid, best-of-breed approach takes advantage of the strengths of each model, allowing you considerable flexibility to conduct risk management operations. Are you prepared to answer the why or how questions for your risk assessments? It is a pretty scary question for many people, since their risk assessments are not based on anything beyond gut feelings and are overly subjective. When an auditor comes knocking, it is critically important to be able to point to program documentation that justifies your decisions. For simple risk assessments, the 6x6 risk matrix can be used to quickly identify the appropriate level of risk the scenario represents. With that knowledge, it is easy to escalate the risk to the appropriate level of management for resolution. Accept, transfer, mitigate, or avoid the risk. Here is the 6x6 risk matrix at a glance. Finally, the RMP helps make assessing risk more efficient by understanding the layers of risk. Dependencies are of critical importance when assessing risk, since risk can have a cascading effect. Ideally, a risk assessment at a tactical level, such as the assessment of a specific application or host, should leverage existing risk assessments that address upstream risks. A well-designed and securely coded application could be compromised if the host system it is running on is insecure. Similarly, the application could be made unavailable if the data center lacks measures to ensure uptime against natural or man-made threats. At a minimum, risk assessments should exist for commonly leveraged aspects of your IT environment, your data centers, including infrastructure risks, and secure configurations for hosts and major applications, such as databases, email, and your intranet. The RMP frames risk according to these layers. Application-specific risk includes insecure code, default or weak credentials, weak encryption, sensitive data stored in clear text, permissions management, missing software patches, and logging or monitoring not being performed. Host-specific risk includes a lack of system hardening, default or weak credentials, lack of encryption at rest, role-based access control, missing software patches, and backups not being performed. Infrastructure-specific risk includes improper equipment, such as consumer-grade networking hardware, a lack of system hardening, and a lack of encryption in transit. And facility-specific risk, plus other dependencies. Physical access controls, environmental controls, redundant utilities, trained response personnel, software escrow agreements, vendor management, trans-border data transfers, and business limitations. If you have any questions, please email support@ComplianceForge.com or call 1-307-241-8740. We've been helping organizations since 2005, and we are always happy to help.